Don't worry about the next, because it's your boy Chris with the next, and you're now tuning into another episode of Chris, the X Zone with Chris Sharp. Now, I've been gone for a minute, now I'm back in the jump off, and I've been wanting to do this podcast for a long time. Shout out to Marcos Castaneda, a good friend. Shout out to his new marriage in on Halloween, October 31st. And this podcast is about what he requested. How did the world change from 2020 to now? Now that we have a new president elected, I feel like that this was a perfect time to talk about how things changed. First of all, I feel like a lot of things, the world hasn't been the same from 2019, because 2019 and before, yeah, we had problems, yeah, we had stuff, but, we still have, money that we can spend. Even if you didn't have money, you still have a lot of resources. You can hop on a train. You can go to downtown LA. I'm an LA native, but anywhere you at, whether in New York, LA, Arizona, anywhere, it was relatively safe. And even if you have to put your hands up, you have to put your hands up, but you still walked away with your life. But ever since 2020, and I don't want to get too political, but it's ever since 2020, they impeached Trump. They got Joe Biden in office. He messed us up for 4 years. Let's just call it what it is. You sent all these illegal immigrants over here illegally, and they were getting a lot of stuff. They were getting a lot of resources that American people wasn't getting. And now in 2024, it's still like that. And 2020 has been over 5 years ago. That's how fast time goes by. It seemed like just yesterday was 2020. We was trying to recover from that mask. Oh, don't even get me started on the mask. You had to go everywhere with the mask. You couldn't breathe. You couldn't, and I had to work 8-hour shifts. I was an essential worker. Clap for an essential worker. I was an essential worker. So it was very difficult to, just wear gloves and masks all day at work. But we slowly, got rid of that because eventually, everything had to go back to normal. And, with Trump in office, it's not going to happen overnight. But I do feel like we're going to start seeing results for American people. I feel like if people want to come over here, they come the right way because no other country is where you can do that. And I'm just stating facts. And that goes for anybody that's coming into America. With improvement, what I do want to see is inflation because we got a lot of people since 2020. Everything, the price went up for everything. Like box of cereals used to be like $2.50, now it's $4.50 for a little box of cereal. They downsizing everything. The soda's been downsized, but it's a high price. They downsizing. You've noticed the gas that went up. I like to shop at Home Depot. Trees I used to get for $24 are now $44. If I want to walk out with 2 trees, that's 84, $85. What before, 24 plus 24 equals like what, 45? Wait, plus tax, because you gotta add the cents onto that. And I use Bonnie's plants. They follow me on Instagram, and y'all should too listen to my voice. And I used to get plants for $3.17. Now they're like $5 a pop. So 5, 10, 15, 20. 4 plants is $24. I'm gonna need to see the prices drop. Drop it like it's hot. And for all my, cause I have a friend that's a teacher too. For all these teachers, the teachers need to be getting a raise. I've been seeing a lot more of these videos online. These teachers having to deal with these, badass kids, these stray kids, We talk about stray dogs, but we need to talk about stray kids. A lot of these kids needed a lot of parental guidance because a lot of these parents are not really raising their kids. Because if you think about it, and I'm not talking about trying to downsize like EBT or welfare, but I feel like a lot of these kids would not exist if it wasn't for the county. Because like somebody was saying, if you work for what you got, it's different between when you work for something and you get something for free. A lot of people that is on the county had these kids that they don't want. They're not raising them. They give them iPads and they're giving them tablets and stuff and letting them just walk around 24/7 with this iPad or the cell phone. Got too much internet access. 10, 12, 11, 13, 14, 16, and they on looking at, hardcore pornography. They're looking at cartel video, ISIS videos, decapitation, mutilation. And these parents think they sitting up here playing video games all day. Or talking to their friends or watching, Sabrina Carpenter or whatever. And they're really not. They're really just out here with binge watching this stuff because, they got the trash music like Sexy Red, Sukahana, Ice Spice, the whole rap, or that King Von trash, that killer rap. And then they out here trying this mess, or that future mess, all that drug crap. The next minute you know it, they with all of that going into their mind because music is frequency, music is power, music is spellcasting. And they listen to that, then they go on this internet, the Twitter, which Twitter is the new Pornhub. They go on this Twitter, binge watching all these videos, and then it's only a matter of time before they're gonna go run out and try this. And they on these adult apps and lying about their age, and they out here just wilding out, getting guns, having illicit sex, getting trains ran on them, and that's not cool. Cause I'm a baby in the '90s kid. We had TLC. I ain't never been no silly hoe. I ain't never been a silly bitch waiting to get rich from a nigga's bank account. We had Independent Women, Destiny Show. Like we lacking all of that. R&B, practice what you preach. Barry White, Tupac, keeping your head up. We missing a lot of that. But then again, it goes back to the home life because sometimes it's up to us as older people to be the big homie because nobody gets to choose their parents, and you have toxic parents, toxic family, and that happens. And sometimes maybe these kids want to separate themselves from family, but they have no guidance. Being that young, looking at a lot of this content where you don't have somebody saying, cut that off, don't listen to that, don't be going out and do that. So these kids, it's not really too much of their fault. They can change around, but again, they need somebody with a sound mind to be doing that. And it's probably not getting it from their household. Because again, some of these kids are not to be had. Some of these parents are lazy as fuck. Some of these kids are not to be had because it's the county. And, the foster care, even with the foster care system is nothing but a bunch of people who are in hookup or situationships. It's hookup culture. A lot of these men are not wearing condoms. A lot of these women are not on the pill. They don't want to take the pill. They don't want to get the contraceptive. Don't even put in the uterus. So you just have two people who don't want to wear a condom, ain't shit, having sex like jackrabbits, and they popping out a bunch of kids. And once they realize that all they have in common is good sex, and there's more to a relationship than good sex, then it's like, okay, this person really is a piece of shit. and the mama doesn't want the baby, and the daddy doesn't want the baby. And so now this kid goes to the foster care. Sometimes they end up getting killed by the parents. There's been stories like that didn't happen, but you know, well, shout out to the ones that send them to foster care. But then, sometimes the foster care, there's a lot of sex traffic, there's a lot of pimping. Some of these foster homes, they do that too. A CPS, a Child Protective Service, the foster care system don't be all A1 all the time. There's a people that get these jobs. Some people take their jobs seriously, some people don't. And which is scary because, the kids, if they ain't learning nothing in school, nobody's, being an adult. Then when they grow up to be adults, it's gonna be hell. Because already like a lot of people don't want a 9 to 5 job, and there's nothing wrong with working a 9 to 5 job. But they don't want to work a 9 to 5 job. They want to jump on these OnlyFans doing this pornography, which is prostitution. To each his own. But I come from a generation where they said if you take naked pictures, you won't get a job. But now these kids, they'll show you from head to toe what they got and what skills they can do. They want to take, quick, easy, fast jobs. The rap game is trash right now. Well, the mainstream media, aka the mainstream media, is dying out. But then again, these 9 to 5 jobs can just step it up because there's no way you should be working at a job 15, 20, 30 years. And like that black man that was working for Burger King, all he got was 2 pins. He was working there 27 years, and all he got was 2 funky pins, 2 bite-sized Kit Kats, and like a sticker. And then these jobs, well, they tend, if they like in 2020, a lot of these jobs show that if they want to let you go, they'll let you go, no matter how long you've been working there. And that's why you have to do what you love in life. And always remember these 9 to 5 jobs, that you're replaceable, that you are a corporate number. If you just show up to work every day, which you should, but there's a time to play and there's a time to rest. There's a time to work and there's a time to rest. Don't just work, 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 work and not have any days off. Like I was saying, there's a time to rest and there's a time to work. There's a time to play. Don't let any of these jobs try to trick you into, just work, 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 and no play. Because these managers, if they want to take their paid vacation off, they get paid vacation off. They get so much of a paper cut and get their 2 weeks off. I know I could experience this. And you got people with actual health issues, or they kind of just burnt out because they only have 1 day off, working 8-hour shifts, only working 1 day off, and your paycheck is still not even amounting to the weeks you work because you got the government taking stuff out. So take your time off. Know how to maneuver your job. Some of these jobs, you could work 3 days, 8-hour shifts, and still get the amount that you would be getting if you only have 1 day, 8-hour shifts, depending on where you work. Because these jobs, again, like in 2020, if they want to let you go, they will let you go. And these jobs don't give a fuck about you. These managers, they just talk to, oh, you gotta be here, this and that. And yes, you do. But they'll talk you down to the ground even if you're sick. They don't care about no loyalty. They don't care about no, oh, well, I had to miss this funeral, I had to miss this birthday, I had to miss this party, or I wanted to see this person, I want to hang out with this person, but I gotta be at work today. No, take your time off, make up a lie, say you're sick, say you're hurting somewhere. This is one time where, I'm a truth teller, but this is an exception where, lies are permitted for working because, like I said, A lot of these jobs will drop you within a dime, like a hot potato. Make your money, but don't let them overwork you. And it's a good thing about this generation is if they know the workplace is toxic, they're not getting that type of money. They know all this stupidity going around this job. They'll quit in a hot second and go find another job. And that's what you should do. Don't let these bosses try to trick you into nothing. Go in with the model. I came in looking for a job, and I will leave here looking for a job. You're not fit to do no P Diddy shit. You're not fit to overwork me. You're not fit to get weird on me. This is not high school or like gossip back and forth because you're not supposed to be friends with your coworkers anyways. You can be work friends, but that's it. And for the time off or the 2 weeks notice, I know that's a courtesy. That's not a must. Because a lot of these jobs, when they want to let you go, they're gonna give you your last check, be out the door. But when it comes to you, oh yeah, you gotta give us your 2 weeks notice. No, you don't. You can work those weeks if you want to, or you could just bounce and skedaddle. And that's what a lot of people do, bounce and skedaddle. You just look at the fact that I told you. And if I'm quitting or leaving, probably chances is I don't really want to come back. So you can't threaten me with coming back. And then too, some of these jobs you can come back. But you put your 2 weeks notice in, and then when it comes to bosses and stuff, you gonna put your friend's number anyways. You gonna put your friend's number for references, or boss's number. Can we call this place this? Put the address and stuff. Put your boss's name. Or if you work for a chain, put another chain. It's like if you work for Ralph in Monterey Park, put the one in Long Beach or Chinatown, and then put your friend's reference. That's how you do it. This is all a game of chess and checkers. You be the checker, don't be the chess. And what else have I noticed? A lot of violence has been on the rise, like I was saying. You can't really hop on the train. I haven't been to downtown LA. I haven't even been on a train in a while because like a lot of violence. Homeless people got guns, stabbing, having sex, people getting raped. And I feel like a lot of it is the like new 2020 homeless people. Because in 2019 and on back, you really didn't have that problem of homeless people like killing people or even doing this new drug called horse tranquilizer. And what is that about? Why are you putting a tranquilizer in your body? But again, I feel like the feds are doing that because $500 a bottle. Where's all these homeless people getting $500 a bottle? One bottle cannot go through over 2,000 people or 200 people, depending on how many homeless people's on Skid Row or wherever they at. Kingston, Pennsylvania, New York, and places like that. And that's all I'm gonna say about that. But I feel like it's a lot of new 2020 homeless people. So you have to stay safe, strapped up, always keep a little something on you in case a weak motherfucker want to act hard. Words from my girl, Meg Thee Stallion. I just wish they would do something with the homeless population. This crime needs to go down. And I feel like a lot of it also the immigration problem because some of these people come over here is good, and a lot of these people coming over here is bad people. Some of these people are from the cartel or gangs. Some of these people are like Venezuela and Mexico. They open up their prisons and tell people if you want to be free, go over here. You can't stay over here. And that's the reason why the crime went down, at least in Venezuela. They need to get like El Salvador's president, Berkeley, and get the crime together. That's what we need. That's what we didn't. That's what a lot of these other countries need. Fix your own country. That's not in a racist, bad, xenophobic way. Just like we need to fix America. Because these prices is out of control. $100 is like chump change. That's like that's like $20 in this generation, and that has to change. Like in the '90s, $100 was like a million. You walk out with a lot of stuff, but it's not like that anymore. But it needs to get back to a decent, livable pricing, because you also have people that make six figures and they're living paycheck to paycheck. So we're in a bad economy, at least for now. We need to get things back to the way they was, or even better than the way they was. We need things cleaned up. Our buildings sparkly, shiny, our streets looking good. That's what we really need, because from 2020 to 2024, it's been, I would say, hell of a ride. And that's just the things that I have noticed. Um, people's mental health. You know, thank God, you didn't pass away from the C-19 coronavirus. That took a lot of people out. I'm glad that kind of died down. And the monkeypox, the diseases, that died down. Uh, like, just, people get vaccinated or don't get vaccinated. Because I'm a firm believer in not getting vaccinated. A scale of 1 to black. Like what happened to the Tuskegee Airmen, all that experimental stuff. As as black folks or just folks in general that don't trust the government, you know how it is. And anybody that's out there that's sexually promiscuous, protect yourself. AIDS and HIV still exist. They have something called positive undetectable, which is HIV. You have it, but it's not enough to kill you. But still, you don't want none of that mess in your system. You don't want nothing you can't get rid of, and you don't want nothing that you can't get rid of. Because then altogether, it's both just nasty. And don't be getting no trains ran on you or nothing, because that's just disgusting. Don't let all these low vibrational, negative celebrities and influencers influence you to do something that you would normally do. Because, like, what is it they influence you to do? Influencer, like, that's just thrown out there. A lot of terms are used loosely. Like, is this gonna get you in jail? Is it gonna get you in hell? Is it gonna get you in the graveyard at an early age? Like, those are things that you need to be concerned with. Because I see a lot of these people, and it's just like, no, OnlyFans is a fast burn. The stuff what I'm doing, this will last a lifetime. I could be the next Larry King with this, because this is what I grew up off my era. Off my era, what I'm growing up, I'm putting that back out there with all of the Backstreet Boys, the NSYNC, the Janet Jackson, Michael Jackson, you name it. Like Shirley said, I got beans, greens, potatoes, tomatoes, chicken, ham. We had all artists. We had Michael, Janet, Britney, Christina, Destiny's Child, you name it. Rockstar, you know, Guns N' Roses, Aerosmith, you name it. Simple Plan, Good Charlotte. I'm just naming it out people. But talent wise, yeah, we need to start getting back to realness. And I feel like a lot of it is happening with, podcasting, Spotify, SoundCloud, you feel a little tongue tied. If you are a filmmaker, you can put your stuff on Tubi, Netflix, and all of these other great apps that we have. And that's the thing. That's the positive. That's the positive side of 2020. A lot of stuff. A lot of online content. A lot of people got creative. Other than the people that was already killing the internet, but a lot of people was getting creative. A lot of people was looking at digital content, and everybody was like, "Well, you don't need Hollywood." That's what I wanted to kind of segue into. Hollywood. You don't need Hollywood because God is good. Now you see people like P. Diddy, who we already know was a nasty person. If you grew up or was around the 90s or early 2000s when he was out as Puff Daddy, you knew he was a piece of shit. He thought he was untouchable. And now he getting all his accolades. Everything you do in life will come back to you. Never do something that'll catch up to you, and never do something that you will live to regret. And like all these other weirdos are scrambling, everything that's done in the dark is gonna come to light. And that's the other positive side, just seeing all that dirt come out. Even with Abercrombie and Fitch. And I remember Abercrombie and Fitch when I was a teenager in early 20s. That story, you have to be white or racially ambiguous. And now you see the person that owns it, who owned it. If he was a customer or a model, he wouldn't even get that job. If you Google his face, he couldn't even work at the place that he wanted to. And he had all these requirements. Diddy too. And I don't even talk shit about nobody's looks, but they fucking ugly. It's always somebody that's ugly as hell trying to comment on somebody else's looks. So, you have the power in your hands with your phone, your iPad, computer. The power is at your fingertips. And that's the positive thing. And the notes that I want to leave on, stay safe, stay prayed up. Always keep your head on a swivel in the public. I'm a homebody. I'm an introvert, extrovert. I like being indoors and outdoors, but outdoors to a certain extent. I know it's weird. Google it. But, normalize cutting toxic people off. Learn how to unlove people. Do not be controlled by people, the past, or memories. There's some people that I've had good times with that I would never fuck with again. Put as much energy into others as they put into you. If you're not receiving it back, if people just like to take, and they not want to give nothing back, that's not a friend. That's an acquaintance. That's a user. Move along. You got some life to live. You got one life to live. Live every day, you die once. And that's just how it goes. So, thank you for tuning in to Chris with the Next. This has been X Zone with Chris with the Next. Any questions, comments, and concerns, you can leave them in the comment section. I think I have a comment section on Spotify. This probably will be uploaded to YouTube. And stay tuned for a lot more in a new season. And my birthday is coming up on December 5th. So shout out to me. Follow me on all social media platforms. And let's do it. Stay tuned. See you later, and peace. Bye-bye.